You have to raise awareness because it can happen to somebody else. It is going to happen to other people. It isn't going to stop with me. It isn't going to stop with our generation. It's going to hit people. Not very many people. It's a rare disease, fortunately. So it is going to hit people. It's going to be someone going to be diagnosed in the next few days, weeks, months with it, who at the moment is going around living a perfectly normal life, not even thinking about it. I have passions in life. One passion I have is travel, but amazingly I don't miss it. I thought I would, but I don't. And I say I don't miss it in some way. I do, of course. If I suddenly, Jesus said, take up thy bed and walk, and I could, then I'd be off around the globe. I wouldn't be able to be walking down the pier. I'd be off down the globe again. I loved amateur dramatics, but that's been largely closed off to me. So I substituted that with Toastmasters and art. Of course, that's a talent I only discovered late in life that I have. Love of colour and ability to do abstract, so those are my great passions. There are several things I thought in life I could do, but it's like one of these things, I must write a book one day, and I must paint a picture. So I've done both, and I just thought to myself, I can do this.
Well, we met at a fancy dress party in Dean's Grange. A friend of mine, a former colleague, told me about this guy who was coming over to stay with her boyfriend. I dressed up as the Kerry farmer in pinstripe wellies, and Roland came as I think it was a sort of a, he was dressed in a cloak with the forks kind of hanging out of his hanging out of his head. I think he was supposed to be some sort of a spirit or something in disguise.
Getting my dad to carry me everywhere. I would beg, carry me, and he would put me up on his back or on his shoulders, because he was, well, he still is, but now he's sitting down in a wheelchair, but a big, strong, 6 foot man. I love my dad's creativity. He's very artistic. He's a good writer. I love just his ability to talk. We love talking about. We like to have conversations kind of that you don't have with everyone else, about space, the afterlife, aliens, things like that. I love his imagination. He's very sociable. I love everything with my dad.
When I got my diagnosis, I went into a state of shock because, unlike when I got diagnosed with cancer a few months later, the support systems aren't there. We given the diagnosis, told to make an appointment for a follow-up appointment, and then 10 minutes later you're really out in the street. But that night I went into severe cramps of diverticulitis or diverticulitis, which I'd had, flamed up and flared up, which I'd put down to shock. So for the next 2 months, I was in a state of shock. Going back to work a week later, I took a week off work because of the diverticulitis. It was a relief to get back to work and tell colleagues and get on with a normal life. But all the time, I broke down in front of my colleagues. It was so emotional, a very raw emotion.
Well, I was totally stunned, and when when the word motor neuron was mentioned, I just thought, I began to wonder, was my hearing right? I was busily sort of trying to take notes and writing words like fasciculations, and I hadn't a clue, I didn't know what they meant or how to spell them or anything like that, and I was just quite baffled. And then I remember Roland asking a question about it, and they said, well, you'll live maybe 3 years, and I was totally stunned by it all.
Well, because I'm a nurse, I had a bit of background about motor neuron disease, and at the time I was living abroad. I was living in Scotland when my dad got the diagnosis. So in the lead up to his diagnosis, he was going for various tests, and his walking was deteriorating, and I was worried about him, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was that was wrong with him. And at one point it did occur to me in a little sort of flitter of moment of thought that it would be something neurological, and unfortunately the call came that it was motor neuron disease. I was absolutely devastated. You just don't think it's going to happen to anyone in your family. Kind of thought that he was going to die, and I really thought it was all going to happen, quite quickly, and it had changed my whole life at the time.
But then the moment of acceptance came when 2 months after diagnosis we were on holiday in Estonia together, and we had hired bicycles for an afternoon. So we went and had a bit of a swim, and then we got on the bicycles, and I was bicycling away, fast and furious, and I thought, let's be very quiet. And I looked around, and a voice said, wait for me! And I then realised that the 3-year diagnosis I'd been given was just what might happen, not what was going to happen. I knew I was going to be around longer than that. And acceptance came then. All the fear, now it didn't leave me for good forever, but the vast part of it left me at that point, at that particular moment. How I got to learn about them was actually initially through a journalist called Jason Vanek, who unfortunately has died since. And he talked to me about motor neuron and having their rights having to be respected because they were neglected. So I had heard of it, but I'd taken no further interest in it. Well, from the moment I was diagnosed, I said to Maeve yesterday, they should really run the country because they deliver on everything so promptly, so quickly, so efficiently, and so aptly. All those 4 things. So I have a hoist. I wouldn't be without a hoist. I now had it in a year in advance of needing it. I had it as soon as it was recommended. It was asked for, so it was given. So all the equipment I've had, plus some help towards home care. When I fell in the house and lost all ability to walk, they were there in response with some practical help. I mean, things happened in a day. I got a check a day later just to help with some home care. That's so they've been tremendously efficient.
It took me a few days to ring them up, and eventually I rang, and I remember Tracy, I started blubbering on the phone, and Tracy just said, well, why don't you pour yourself a glass of water? I did that, and by the time I poured the glass of water, I had recovered and was able to sort of explain what was happening. I suppose the most important thing is that we have the hoist, and we were advised to make sure that we had everything in advance rather than panicking at the last minute. And they're extremely efficient. The equipment comes in good time and is delivered with a smile. So that has certainly saved us an enormous amount of money. Without the MND aid, I don't know how we would have managed.
Oh, the carers and the care team are great and the reason they're great is because it's a nurse-based agency, and because it's nurse-based, they're as involved in the care of their patients. The care team are, so they've got 4 day carers, and 2 of those day carers come at night as well. So I have a total of 6 carers. So 8 carers, 8 carers who come out over between day and night care. And they're very good because odd times they've not been able to come. The nursing manager has come out and stood in for them. And has been involved with the other agents, the HSE and Motor Neuron Society, in part of the care process. So they're very much involved as a team as well. And then hire very high quality staff who are tremendously human and efficient and friendly.
Dad has been amazing really with his how he's kind of tackled this illness. Very early on he kind of wanted to focus really on what the things he can do rather than things he can't do anymore. He doesn't dwell on, well, I can't do that now. We would acknowledge it, but we won't dwell on it. Instead, think about what we will be able to achieve for things we can do still. A bit of normality is really important in a family. You can have something like this happen to you, have an awful diagnosis, and you can tiptoe around it, or you can just be a normal family, and I think they like that, and they like the laughs and everything else that goes with it.
I don't know. I think we've learned, a sort of a great appreciation of maybe small things in life. like, you know, looking at a bit of nature in the garden. You know, and I think we said that from the word go, that we would try to make the most of each day and sort of live in the moment. And we try not to talk very much. We don't talk too much about the past, or we try to avoid sentences that began if only, or we would have done this if. Of course we would have travelled more because we're, you know, both retired now, and unfortunately Roland didn't get a chance to prepare for retirement. Well, I suppose it's very much living in the moment, enjoying the days when the sun is shining, or if the hailstones are hopping off the ground, just having an appreciation. So we're fortunate that we can do that.
Well, I don't know quite where to start, because it's they've been loving and caring from day one, and we know we tease each other and josh each other along. The great thing about having a family is we don't put each other up on a pedestal. Yet at the same time we boost each other, and we can laugh and tease and joke, and just come to terms with it, that life is not eternal, and that sooner or later, you know, it ends for all of us. The amount it's very hard to put into words, the amount of resilience and fun we can still find in life. And we find one of the great things is being sociable and realising also how kind people are. We've had enormous kindness from sources we never expected. And I think, you know, every friend comes up trumps in a magnificent way, and extended support and family have made it so much easier to adapt to. It is incurable. That's the main thing why awareness has to be forward, because if someone gets diagnosed, it is incurable, progressive and terminal. That's what it is, and there's always one or two people who defy that, but the vast majority in those cases that is the case for their life, that in 3 to 5 years, that's what they have left. And I'm nearly 5 years now after the diagnosis, and I'm one of the few lucky ones that have everything from the neck upwards intact, and a reasonable functioning order in the hands. Not brilliant, but enough to get by. So I really want to raise awareness, in the hope that every step I do helps. I thought of a slogan the other day. I remember Spike Milligan. He wrote "Hitler, my part in his downfall," and he was only a private, and he wrote a humorous account. Well, I thought by taking part in a little campaign, I could say, MND, my part in its downfall, quite legitimately.